Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC. We are back again for a little bit more therapy, and we thought we'd bring a few friends along for the discussion. It's much needed if you're a Newcastle United fan at the moment. It feels like Groundhog Day, feels like rinse and repeat, but we've got to get it through it somehow, and we got to get through it together. And that's why we're here tonight. So, boys, Daz, Chris, how are you on this fine Wednesday evening?
All good to me. Busy day at work and then out on the training pitch with my under-9s Gaelic football training. Back on the pitch, like Eddie Howe says, getting a bit of training in, and I hope they perform when we do get to play a game. I hope they show up, not like our own boys every game we get these days for Newcastle United. But Chris, how are you?
Good, mate. Yeah. Busy day in work as always, but yeah, good. And I managed to go for a little run, followed by a walk because the run was pathetic. So that was after work. That was nice. And then I just had a bite to eat, and then been looking forward to coming on, with you boys and having a bit of a Toon focused show. So, and obviously, to get on some guests as well to talk about it and get their perspectives and their opinions is brilliant. So been really looking forward to tonight's show. And hopefully some positives to come away with. Hopefully we can cheer everyone up in the chat as well. But Pete, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Good week.
Come on.
Yeah, feeling good. Just seeing Haaland. I think Haaland bagged 1-0 Man City already in the game. So as it stands, I believe Man City are going to the top of the Premier League, which will only create more panic for Arsenal fans, no doubt. And it's a beautiful finish, a little dink over the goalkeeper. Superb stuff. But yeah, all good. I'm trying to not think too much about Newcastle United, but for the next hour or so, we are probably going to do absolutely that. And we've got some friends to come along with us, so we'll bring them in. So first of all, we'll bring in Johnny Greenwood. Let's bring the boy in.
Johnny, welcome back.
Cheers, lads. How you all doing?
All good, man.
Good. Aside from football, all good.
Yeah, apart from the football's not being too bad. I just want to say, actually, I'm actually surprised Pete's actually on the show tonight, because I thought after what happened yesterday and with his beloved Leicester City, I would have thought he would have been in mourning. So, so I'm very, very surprised. So, Pete, good on you for coming on the show, because, like I say, it must have been tough for your Foxes yesterday, going into League One and facing the likes of Bromley and some Wigan and teams like that. So fair play on you, mate. Fair play.
Everything you said just then is what I've been saying to all my work colleagues today with the biggest grin on my face. So you can't get me with that, mate, because I've been partying ever since 9 something last night, seeing that. I've got loads of stick off them over the years, so it's nice to actually give it back to them.
Would you go to the under-21 game in the Papa John's Cup if we get them in the next round? If we get them next season, would you go to that one?
Maybe. Because we'd have a chance of winning. That's why I'd go to it, for sure. But no.
Which end?
Let's not do that, Johnny. We're all Come on now. I'm very happy right now. Don't change my mood. It's probably going to change for all of us when we get into this discussion. But, of course, you haven't come alone. You've brought back up, and we'll bring on the top guy, Fumbi, full of positivity. So will he still have the same positivity this time around? Let's wait and find out.
I think we're going to test him tonight, aren't we? On that one. Fumbi, welcome back.
What's going on, lads? How we doing? Everyone good?
Good, mate.
We are.
Yeah?
We're just not talking about football at the moment, so we're all good right now.
Yeah.
We'll see how we feel later on in this show. Specs will be joining us later on. For those that follow him on socials, unfortunately, his brother passed away in the last week or so. So he's send our condolences to Specs and his family. Obviously, things he's got sorting out, and rightly so. Family comes first, but he He said to me about 15 minutes ago, he's like, I love coming on the channel and talking with the boys. So I'll try and make it if I possibly can. So we may see specs, but completely understand if we don't. And he will be back, no doubt about it, on Talking Toon. Boys, I want to start with the conversation that we might as well start with. And let's rip off the Band-Aid and start the conversation. And it's about, of course, our manager, Eddie Howe. Since we last spoke to you, boys, we're full of hope and optimism with the international break and what's potentially going to happen next. We've seen what's happened next. 2 defeats, Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace, and then again, Bournemouth. What's interesting in all of this is that there's a team that have just lost 5 games in a row that have just parted with their manager today in Chelsea. If anyone's missed it, Liam Rossini has been sacked by Chelsea after a short period in charge. We are currently 4 defeats in a row, if you include the Barcelona game. And this has been the response from what we've heard as an exclusive yesterday from Liam Kennedy. Liam Kennedy has heard and has it well sourced that Eddie Howe retains the full support of Newcastle United. The relationship's strong and he is key in the eyes of the CEO and the sporting director and central to the summer planning and beyond as things stand. Okay. The PIF board are going to be in town possibly next week for a meeting. Lots of fans at the weekend were saying, oh, he's being summoned, he could get sacked. This is apparently a scheduled meeting that they have every year at this point in the year. So my question to you boys is keeping Eddie Howe at Newcastle United and throwing support behind him as David Hopkinson has done, is that the right move for you? And I'm going to start with our guests. So, Johnny, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on what I've just shared there?
Just first things first, I'll just echo the same thoughts as yourself, Peter, on Specs. Obviously, he's, top bloke. So, yeah, my thoughts are with him and his family at this time. But Luke, going back to your question, it's the curious case of Eddie Howe and Newcastle United, isn't it? I've got no problem with Eddie Howe being Newcastle manager until the end of the season. It's 5 games. Are we going to learn anything if we put Graham Jones in temporary charge at the end of the season? Probably not. He might even start Voldemar up top. You never know. Well, it's a crazy thought when you think about it now. But I'm not. I think yesterday what the club did was just basically throw some cold water over all the speculation at this moment in time. And it was just kind of say, look, it's business as normal. Nothing's really changed. Meetings were scheduled. Meetings are going to, take place. And if we have a decision to make, we'll make a decision. My opinion hasn't changed. I do think a change of manager is needed. I've only felt like that since the Sunderland game. Truthfully, I think obviously there has been signs throughout the season, but I think you've always had the caveat going, well, we've always had cup games, we've always had Champions League games. So for me, I've always given the manager the benefit of the doubt. I think if you're Eddie Howe in, it's not necessarily the wrong opinion or the wrong decision. I think if you are Eddie Howe in, there's got to be some changes for next season if he's allowed to continue his job. And that's lack of power in the transfer window, and he's got to show a little bit more. Well, I'll say a lot more. What's my best way? More creativity in terms of his tactics, because that everyone's talking about, the fact that we had 3 weeks between the Sunderland game and the Crystal Palace game, and obviously we're not neutrals, but my God, I don't really want to watch that 90 minutes back again. Oh my God, I don't know how. Honestly, unless you're paid to by Newcastle United Crystal Palace Football Club to watch that back, you wouldn't be watching that back in a hurry. And it was the same on Saturday against Bournemouth. There was a couple of obviously personnel changes, but not real difference in the type of football. It's a shame. I don't think it'll tarnish his legacy if he stays at the football club until the end of the season. But the worry is it could tarnish his legacy if he's still here next season and it starts bad. Because I think if you're 6 games into the next season, regardless of who you play, and let's just say you win one, draw a couple, and lose a couple, then you'd be thinking, why did we make a change in the summer? So that's where I'm at with it at this moment in time. I think there's got to be more creativity from the manager, tactics wise. Maybe try and start with maybe Saturday and see, well, what can you do against an Arsenal team where all the pressure is on them? There's no pressure on us. All the pressure is on a team that needs to go and win the title, and probably will start the game in second place, which I haven't been since about September. So what are you going to do, Eddie Howe? What are you going to do to make it even worse for Arsenal and Mikel Arteta on Saturday night?
Fumbi, get your thoughts on
Yes,
this.
sir.
Normally, you're the person that's most positive out of all of us on the panel. Obviously, we've seen the results, we've seen the performances, we've seen the discontent by the fan base with regards to Eddie Howe. Fans expecting him to go. From what I've mentioned to you about the report of Liam Kennedy, and it's been reported elsewhere as well, and I know the Chronicle reported exactly the same thing with regards to Eddie Howe being given sort of the backing by the hierarchy. Where do you stand on this? Do you believe maybe it's time for a new manager, or are you thinking the hierarchy have made the right decision in deciding to keep him and see him beyond into next season?
I think it's time for the truth. I think it's time to let everyone needs to figure out what is it Newcastle are trying to do here. We've been taken over by a new board over 5 years. What's the plan? I know Amanda Stelby told us that we'll be winning Champions Leagues and dominating and looking for titles at this point, but clearly that wasn't, you know what I'm saying, that was a bit naive. So we are in a place now where we're going on to the next phase of whatever. What's the plan here? If it's to sack Eddie Howe because we lost to Palace and Bournemouth, okay, that's cool. Then we bring in who? And then what's the plan with him? Because in his first season, you men are talking about Eddie not winning in the first 6, maybe he wins 1 or draws 2. What if a new manager does that? Is that acceptable? Because in Eddie's first season, he finished in the Champions League and went to a Carabao Cup final. Is that now the precedent for the new manager to come in? Or are we going to give him grace? And if so, how long does he get the grace for? So the truth is this, where we are now as a club is to understand where we're trying to go. This idea that we're going to be Real Madrid and Bayern Munich in 5 years is ridiculous, especially when you look at how the club, we've grown quicker on the pitch than we have off the pitch. You know what I'm saying? We are not that club that just gets to attract everybody when we want and how we want. This argument that if we don't make Europe, our stars are going to want to leave. Our biggest star left after our best season. So that's irrelevant. Okay, there's so many problems that we've faced that don't just rest on sacking a manager. It's way more than that. We still have Murphy and Willock. We want to talk about Eddie's tactics. Any tactic that involves bringing on Willock, I'm not interested in. I don't care how it works. I don't care. When I look at our bench, I'm not thinking to Eddie, change something. I'm thinking, why do we have this bench? So there's so many issues Newcastle have run into in a bid to trying to become this global club. It's just not been that simple. Look at Tottenham. It took PSG damn near 15 years to get to the point where they are today. We want to crack that code in 5 seasons? With the mess we've been in for 17 years? It's cool. We can sack Eddie tomorrow morning, okay? Bring in Jose Mourinho. I heard someone say he would attract star power. He hasn't attracted a star player in damn near 10 years. So what's he going to do at Newcastle? That's what that he couldn't do at Tottenham, that he couldn't do at Man United. Everybody in this, the reason why the board have come and backed Eddie is because they know ain't no revamping the summer. They ain't spending 500 million to rebuild a team. So this is the devil they know, and they trust it because it's a gradual process from here on. So many issues. Players being sold, players being brought in. Oh, Tonali, he deserves to play in the Champions League. What, based off this season? How do we compensate for that? Of all the 22 points that everybody says we've lost from winning positions, go to each and every one of those games. Show me a clip when Thiago just decided to give a penalty in the last minute. And somebody said a red card. How do we compensate for those things? And yes, they assembled that team this season, and it was the wrong team. But it wasn't just Eddie's fault. We had no sporting director. The board decided to go and have tea with Isak and try and beg him to stay at the club when they should have sold him 2 years ago. So all these problems amount to everybody being naive and not knowing how to move forward in the next, or being naive in the sense where the Saudis have never been here before. They've never managed a club before. This is their first time, right? And so they're trying to get to global status. What the Premier League has done is cop-locked in every single aspect. And they've had to maneuver that. And within that period, we've had Eddie Howe's not a bad manager. He's having a bad period, but he's not a bad manager. No one can tell me this guy's a bad manager. 5 years at a club that have not spent like Chelsea or City or Man United or Liverpool at 2 Champions League campaigns and a cup. Also, in both Champions League campaigns, we went in with a squad as thin as ice. Bare minimums. When these other squads have bare depth. Look at PSG. They peak when they want. In this current 11, if our first 11's not doing it, the bench ain't doing it. So I give the man grace. I give the club grace. I understand now that this mountain we're trying to climb is very, very difficult. And if we start in at the sacking managers era, then it's a slippery slope from there. Because you can bring in a new manager, he's under pressure immediately. We've seen good. So he can't tell us it's going to take time. And that's where I stand with it. I'm not saying Eddie should stay. I'm not saying he should go. But I don't think it's Eddie out. I think the problems Newcastle have are problems of you trying to move from a club that was irrelevant for 17 years to trying to be the fine. Like I say it all the time, just because you got a pair of new titties doesn't make you the finest girl in the club. It really doesn't. It takes a long time to get to that level. And at the moment, we've got some nice new titties, but we're not the finest girl in the club. And that's just where
I don't know who has, but I definitely haven't. But I hear what you're saying, Pumby. And some interesting points there, boys. Daz, Chris, Johnny, and Fumby have both had their opinions on where they stand with Eddie Howe. You know, are you in agreement with what either of them have said? And ultimately, where do you stand now with 5 games to go, 5 tough games where you could argue, are we even going to get a win from any of those 5? How do you see this situation with Eddie Howe as it stands, Daz?
I've been totally distracted by Fumby's titties there, so I apologize if we go off track. First of all, I'll go back to some of the points. I had to take my notes because I could go off in a number of tangents, but I agree with what you're saying, first of all, Fumby, on Amanda. When Amanda came in, takeover was done. Right after a week before, Johnny said it wasn't going to happen, if I remember correctly. You were around with us, Johnny. But
you know what it is. That's such a cheap shot, that way. That is such a cheap shot.
I love that. I think the endorphins got the better of her, and she kind of ran away with herself at that first interview. But you only have to look to the interview with the CEO, who's promised all sorts by 2030. So what have we learned? Nothing, if that's the case. On Eddie Howe, look, I think it's time for a change. He's been we stuck with him for so long, defending him, and we've said it that we came to the end of the line. He's just kind of so stubborn and set in his ways as well. And there's a massive change in personnel needed, but is he the man to make that change? Look for example, the last 2 games. We had from our leadership group, we had Jacob Murphy as our captain, and then the last game, Jacob Murphy not even tracking back for that second goal. What was all that about? That's a disgrace, really. Then into what our targets should be for Eddie Howe or a new manager. We're not going to be in Europe. The new manager or Eddie Howe, the target is simple. We need to finish in the top 5 and get into the Champions League. Simple as that. That is the target. If you're coming to Newcastle, that is your target. For me, that's your target. And if you were to achieve that, your target is to get into Europe the following season. I'm not saying Champions League, but to get into Europe, because that's something we haven't been able to do back-to-back European seasons. And I want to throw a new name into the arena as well. We talked about a few names. We talked about Julian Nagelsmann. We talked about Jose Mourinho. We talked about Mancini. How about Xabi Alonso? If Arne Slot isn't leaving Liverpool, he's free. Look what he did at Leverkusen. It didn't work out at Real Madrid. Johnny's shaking his head. Why
Can
not
I just-
Xabi Alonso?
Can I just quickly say, I would love Newcastle to get the best manager they could physically get, but people talking about Alonso and Nagelsmann ain't happening. Ain't happening. We're not, and it's like I agree with pretty much what Fumby said. There's a couple of things I disagree with, and I'll mention that in a second. But on the whole of we're basically trying to run before we can walk a little bit when it comes to managers that we can actually attract. Xabi Alonso was Real Madrid manager. Now, I know Rafa Benitez was Real Madrid manager and came to Newcastle, but he was desperate for a job in the Premier League and basically offered himself to Newcastle at the time. Xabi Alonso will have Champions League clubs after him. Newcastle, at the minute, are nowhere near that. They're nowhere near that. Newcastle, I think they should be jumping all over Iraola. I really do. I think he's an absolute outstanding candidate. He might not be the next Newcastle United manager. I think what I would probably say is Eddie Howe has done a magnificent job, and there's nobody that can take that away. But if you're replacing Eddie Howe, you need somebody, and I'm probably going to contradict myself a little bit here. You need somebody that next level, but that's not going to be an Alonso or a whoever that may be, because they're just not going to come to Newcastle at this moment in time. I think he needs someone that is above Eddie Howe, that is a realistic target. But I couldn't tell you who that is right now. I don't think Iraola's probably that much better than Eddie Howe. But you look at what he's done with the Bournemouth side, who doesn't have as much control financially that what Eddie Howe did in last summer. Because that's the one thing I kind of disagree with Fumby a little bit with, in terms of saying he's not had a lot of money. Yes, he's not had the Chelsea and Man City money, but look how much money he had to spend in the summer. And in a player that he's been after for 2 years, and Anthony Elanga has been, I would argue, he's in the debate for the worst signing we've ever had at Newcastle. He's in that category because I can't remember more than one good game he's had this season, maybe two at max, and that's why he has to relinquish some sort of control on transfers. Because if you give him the Monday to Friday job, fine, you can probably stay for me because you can do that great job. But in terms of being in charge of the final say for transfers, Steve Nixon must have been scratching his head on Saturday, going, "Why is Ryan not playing in a black and white shirt?" That's all I would say on that, basically.
I'm glad you took that bait, Johnny. So 1 week from now, we'll set you watch this space.
I can't. I spoke to Sam the other day, and he mentioned Terzic. He thinks Terzic would be a manager that Newcastle could possibly get. But again, I don't know. It's if Newcastle are trying to get somebody, I think PIF would be after a name, and it wouldn't surprise me if they went down the Mourinho route. I don't think it'd be the right decision. But
the funny thing is, everyone keeps mentioning Xabi Alonso because he won the trophy. He won the league at Bayer Leverkusen. We might as well get Arne Slot then, because he won the league at Liverpool.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what does everybody watch about Xabi Alonso that makes them think he's just going to come to Newcastle? We're going to start playing tiki taka. Like, everything is, and I'm not against Xabi Alonso or anybody else. I'm just saying, already, if we get a new manager and he doesn't do what Eddie's doing, then what? We're going to start saying sack him too. Then we become Tottenham.
Yeah, it's a difficult decision. It's a difficult topic, and this is why we're discussing it. Chris, your opinions on all things Eddie Howe. You've got to hear pretty much the whole picture from our panel, and I know you'll have your own thoughts on this Eddie Howe situation. Where do you stand?
Yeah, it's a tough one because I obviously I've heard what Johnny and Fumby have said, and there is elements I do agree with on both. But yeah, I mean, for me, from my point of view, and Daz mentioned it, as a channel, as us three boys, we've backed Eddie out of the hills. We've probably been the last ones, to kind of start calling them out. And I think I mentioned it to Johnny before we went live. That break. Where we had the 2 or 3 weeks, Eddie Howe's been crying out, to work on the training pitch, work with the lads, get them ready. And then we just saw exactly what we've seen for arguably, the best part of the season. And my difficulty is, and I thought Fumby made a good point, because it did make me sit back and think, if we did get a new manager in, if the results didn't quite pan out as we'd want, will people start getting nervous? We've seen what Chelsea have done, obviously, with Liam Rosenior today, but I just feel like it's gone too far now. You know, if I saw like glimmers of hope and all these points we've dropped, and I'd get it. And, you know, obviously if that hadn't happened, we'd probably be much higher up the league. But I just had a little look at the league then, and Liverpool are on 55 points and they're 5th in the league. And Liverpool have been garbage, absolute garbage. And again, it gets me angry, it gets me frustrated, because I look at the likes of Liverpool, the likes of Man United, who've obviously had an upturn since Carrick come in. Unai Emery, who's got Villa thirds, they were a little bit up and down. And then you look further down at the likes of Brighton, Chelsea, Bournemouth, loads of inconsistencies. And I just think to myself, I know it's difficult, and I know that, you know, we've been fighting on 4 fronts, tough Champions League campaign, I get all of that. But then I look at the summer, and the summer was not handled well. And I felt sorry for Eddie Howe, you know, in terms of Paul Mitchell screwed him over, and then he was having to run everything himself. And then, you know, we were scratching round, you know, trying to get it in a striker or two. But then I take a step back and I think, hang on, we spent 250 million here. The best part of 250 million. And basically, boys, when you sit back and look at it, we've got Anthony Elanga, we've got Jacob Ramsey, we've got Nick Voltemade, we've got Johan Wissa, we've got Adam Ramsdale, and you start going, hang on a minute. Malik Chow, yeah. You start going, hang on. Out of these, who's been the big success? Who's been the one? And you probably would say Malik Chow. Like, Malik Chow for the vast majority of the season has been excellent. But then you go, you know, you look back over previous seasons since the new ownership came in, and we've not made many mistakes in the transfer window, and mistakes were always going to happen. But it's just happened at this junction, and I feel like it's been really, really detrimental towards Howe. And the last point, which is the part that's tipped me over the edge in terms of, I think we need to move on. I think we need to, you know, bring in a new manager. And I do agree with Johnny. You know, you can sack him now, but then is Graham Jones or somebody or Jason Tyndall, who may step into the post, are they going to change things around for the last 5 games? Probably not. Pete, you suggested either last week or the week before, you know, why not announce that Eddie Howe's leaving? Let him see it out. Let the fans give him the, you know, the farewell he deserves. Because Eddie Howe, as a bloke, of what he's done, has been absolutely fantastic. And genuinely, it would hurt me if he stayed next season and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, whatever it is, into the season, we're seeing exactly what we're seeing now. We hound him out. And then not only does it ruin next season, but secondly, we're going, oh my God, do you remember when we absolutely loved them? And that would make me sad. But sorry, I'll get to my point. The key part for me of what I've seen, particularly in recent weeks, is the fact that the vast majority of that team are not playing for them. And that is clear to me. It's evidence. Now, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, if you've got a 20, 25, 30-man squad, whatever it may be in that first team, if you've got that amount of players, and I would comfortably say, based on what I've seen, 70, 80% are not listening to him, are not following his instructions. Daz made the point about Jacob Murphy. Jacob Murphy, who shouldn't even be at Newcastle United, in my opinion. I think he's been very, very fortunate. He had a fantastic season last season, but that was the Miggy Almer on point to sell him, in my opinion. He's been kept on. Eddie Howe's backed him. He's put him in the leadership group, and he can't even track his man. That's shit. That's really, really shit. And if I was Eddie Howe watching that back, I'd be sticking the video in front of him and going, what the fuck's that? I've backed you in the summer. I increased your wages. I've got you in the first team squad. I've got you playing. I've given you the captain's armband. You're in the leadership group and you're giving me that. What's going on? The likes of Anthony Gordon, he's got one foot out the door. We know that. Sandro Tonali, Fumby made the point. You know, most people would say he probably is a Champions League player. Has he proved it this season? Arguably not. But when he's on form, he's there. And, you know, you could argue that he's probably looking at it and going, you know, I'm 26, I want to move on. But players like Jacob Murphy, he's only going in one direction when he leaves Newcastle United, let's be clear. And he's not playing for them. So then you start looking around the squad, and I could list a load of players. Too many players are down in tools, boys. There's too many. And for me, that spells an issue. And then your new signings, the players who he backed, he bought, Nick Voltemade, Johan Wissa. We made the point on the last show. Nick Voltemade, Johan Wissa, for whatever reason, are not in the starting 11, and we'll probably come to that shortly. He's playing a 4th choice striker in Will Asula, who everybody knows, it's the worst kept secret, he will be moving on in the summer. So if you're looking forward and you're looking at the last 6, 5, 4 games or whatever it is, surely as a manager, I would be thinking, I want the boys in here who are going to get in the trenches for me. I want the ones who are going to give 110%. And granted, maybe he's thought that with Will Asula, but at the same time, you've got to look forward. Surely he's been speaking to his staff and he's been going, do you know what? Nick Voltemar, that he's here now, we need to invest in him. So why aren't you playing him? Why are you bringing him on as soon as we can see the goal with 3 minutes to go? Why are you doing that? Because you're just making yourself... I mean, Pete, you made the... I know what you're going to come in and Pete. Go on, Pete, say it. I know what you're going to say.
I think you've answered your own question there. I genuinely think you've answered your own question there. In that you've asked the question, you know, you've made the point in saying Eddie Howe is probably wanting to stick with the players that are going to go into the trenches with him, but then you're wondering why Voltemaro's not playing. Maybe that's the reason. And I've said it to you boys before. I'm convinced they've had a fallout. In some way, shape, or form, I'm convinced that him and Nick Voltemar have had a fallout, because that's the only reason that I can think of as to why he's not playing him. And maybe he's looking at him and thinking, yeah, you're not willing to go in the trenches for me. You're not willing to play for me. As is, and he's not the only one, Johan Wieser, especially from what we've seen of his attitude. And I think probably what the manager's seen of his attitude and going, you're not for me. You're not showing that you want this. You're not showing that you're willing to fight for this. When things have got tough, all of a sudden, you've dropped off and you thought, yeah, can't be arsed. And it could well be that he is trying to kind of rustle through and find the weeds to pick out the weeds so we can go strong again. I don't know.
Just a question, Peter, and you know you do raise a good point, but just a question. So if you're David Hopkinson, you're Ross Wilson, you're Yasser Al-Rumayyan when they have this meeting, and you sit down and you're having this conversation with Eddie, and you go, right, so let me just get this clear, Eddie. So you brought in Johan Wieser, fell out. You brought in Nick Voltemar, fell out. You want to get rid of Will Asula, he's starting. Anthony Gordon wants to go. Sandro Tonali wants to go. And Tino Livramento might be going. You get to that point where, as an owner or as a director or whatever it may be, and I'm then having a private conversation when he leaves the room, and I'm going, lads, we've got to fucking get rid of you. This is not working. This is not good. Because other than getting to the summer and going, right, okay, let's get rid of them 8 and let's bring in another 10, which will not happen. It won't happen. It won't happen. So you either change one man or you change the whole squad, and you can't. And Pete, you made the point ages ago. You can't change the whole squad. You can't do it.
You absolutely can't. You can't change a whole squad, but you can get rid of a number of players that may be influencing the bad performances. And for me, there are 2 players that are absolutely clear that are influencing bad performances. 1 is Anthony Gordon, and 2 is Tino Livramento. They're both influencing bad performances. For me, I would not be surprised. And it's quite interesting that both of those players are injured right now, or injured in some cases, right? I'm not surprised by it. It's because they, for me, are the ones that are negatively influencing this team. Because you look at them at their pomp, and for me, I've only seen Anthony Gordon play one good season. And that was his first full season at Newcastle United, where he gave everything for the shirt. And that's what we loved about him. And we wanted to see the same. And unfortunately for me, and for us, I don't believe that we've seen that since. And I'll go back to the point that I mentioned to you boys on the last show. And I said, that moment he lost that Liverpool deal is the moment we lost Anthony Gordon, the Anthony Gordon we've seen in that season. We've not seen him again. We haven't seen that Anthony Gordon again. And he now believes that he is bigger than Newcastle United. He believes that he can hold and pull rank and decide when he wants to play and when he doesn't. And Newcastle United, as somebody quite rightly mentioned before, we are not in that position to hold a player that can pick and choose when he wants to play. Tino Livramento has gone down exactly the same route. The problem for him, right, is, and the problem for us, is that we might have to stick with him next season, because I'm not convinced that any team is going to come in and put any significant bid to take him when he, and I said it to you boys before, if he doesn't play again this season, he would have missed 5.5 months of football this season. 5.5 months. Who in their right mind? I'm sorry, I've been trying to flog Tino Livramento to Arsenal, to City. I'm talking to all these guys. I'm even saying to Rich and Billy at Villa, saying, You're in Champions League. You're going to want a right back. Go get rid of Cash and go and get Tino. I'm trying to get rid of this guy because for me, I genuinely don't see how he's going to get any better than what we've already seen him. And when you add to the fact that his attitude's not right, you don't lose and concede the amount of goals that he's conceded recently if you're not, if you're switched on and you're focused and you're fully concentrated on the game. He ain't asked. He ain't asked. He thinks he's going to get his move and he ain't asked about Newcastle United. Anthony Gordon, exactly the same. I saw it against Palace, right? He tried for about 10 minutes, right? And when he saw it wasn't working, he just went, give up. And he started looking for himself. And that move in where we're on the counter attack and he had Joe Linton one side, Asuli the other, either one of them had a tap in, and he decided to cut back and shoot, and it got blocked, right? And see all the players look at him like, what the hell are you doing? And you could see in that moment, he is thinking about himself. And it goes back to the point. And to be fair, I backed him for that penalty against Karabag. And it goes back to that point. Maybe what Trippier did in calling him out had a little bit more meaning to it. Now what we're seeing further along down the line. So for me, those two are the big standouts. I don't put as much on Murphy, right, in terms of downing tools. For me, Murphy's just shit. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He's just shit. He's just shit. I don't think he's down tools. That is Murphy trying. You can't tell me. You go back to last season in his best season in a Newcastle shirt, or the other seasons before, and you can't tell me that he's any better than what we're seeing. His tracking back's atrocious. We were calling that out last season. The fact that he weren't tracking back, we were calling that out and begging for a new right winger when he was putting 20 GA on the table, and we were still calling for a new right winger because we could see the flaws. He's just not a good player, and for me, he just hasn't got any football IQ. Neither is the other right winger. But that's another conversation. At least he tries. But you're looking around the other players. Sandro Tonali, maybe. Can we maybe get him around the table? Giving him the captaincy, maybe, in my opinion, is a sign that maybe he stays. I don't know. Maybe not. Who knows? But I'm having that conversation. Bruno, absolutely. Right? You go through the rest of the team. There are players there that are giving their all. I feel sorry for Botman. And I feel sorry for Chow because they're surrounded by absolute utter dross at the moment. Maybe Hall aside, but Hall was really poor on Saturday. Hall aside, because Hall was a fantastic player. But I think those centre-backs are surrounded by dross. Tino with his poor attitude and rubbish play. Trippier, just an accident waiting to happen. Two absolute donkeys in goal, right? I feel sorry for those guys. These guys are not bad defenders. Malik Chow is not a bad defender. We saw it when Malik Chow was being absolutely lauded as playing brilliantly. That was when this team was fit and firing, and we were the best defensive record in the Premier League come October, alongside Arsenal. And he was the big reason for it. Sven Botman, I believe those two as a pairing will be brilliant if they've got the right players around them. So I don't put too much pressure on them. Goalkeepers, they can all go as far as I'm concerned. Like, you could go through it. But in terms of the downing of the tools, you're looking at two very key players in Tino and Gordon, players that are looked up to in that squad. And that doesn't bode well for Newcastle United. And they are both key players, both as a fullback. We know fullbacks are absolutely crucial in the way we play. And Anthony Gordon is crucial on that left-hand side because on his day, he can produce. The problem is he's massively inconsistent. And that is my issue. Going on to Eddie really quickly, go on, jump in.
I just wanted to say, I really think I don't think the players are not playing for Eddie. I think that Isak situation of how a star player left us and we were damn near powerless, that has started. Tonali has been on that trajectory since the beginning of the season. Oh, Isak's going to better pass his new. Oh, yeah, well, let me start getting myself in the shop window. Notice how the rumors of Tonali leaving came since the beginning of the season. Since the beginning of the season, his agent's been saying Juventus and this and this and that. And that's trickled down to the other players, like Anthony Gordon. He thinks he's a Champions League player now. And so they see Newcastle, not just the manager, they see Newcastle as beneath them. Tino sees Newcastle as beneath him. He thinks, I'm on to the next. And that's the attitude or the air that Isak leaving created for us. That club that can't keep its stars. So the other stars are thinking, if they're coming for me and you can't keep me, I'm gone too. And they're not going to, this is a World Cup here, they're not going to break their backs for Newcastle. They're all trying to preserve legs. So yeah, we've built wrong because we weren't able to match this idea we were going to be a PSG in 3 years. So now they're like, oh, you can't do what them men are doing. Time to go.
Yeah.
So when we start again, we have to know the kind of players we're buying, man. We have to know who we're going for. Because I don't want this shit anymore. You see how these players, Tonali couldn't be bothered to play in the derby, you know, but he was fully fit for 2 Italian games back to back, and he sacked the derby. That shit hurt my soul.
Bang on.
You know what I'm saying?
Bang on. People, bang on. No, that's been swept under the carpet, Pete. That's been swept under the carpet.
Not on this channel, it hasn't. We've called that out. Right from the beginning. We know that he stepped away from that game. He was put under pressure by the Italian Federation to drop the derby to play in those 2 games. He didn't have to do it. He could have played. If it was any other time, he would have motored through and he'd have played in that derby and he would have made a difference. But he chose his national team and the chance to go to a World Cup. He saw that as more important than playing for Newcastle United. And it's unforgivable. You're absolutely right, Fumby. And you're right, Johnny. But Johnny, carry on.
I was just going to say, what I'm saying when I mean it's been swept under the carpet with Tonali is that since that Palace game, no one's really mentioned it. Now, I'm not defending Anthony Gordon or Tino Livramento. I'm very relaxed about the Livramento's situation, truthfully. I think Livramento's he's been a decent, well, I say decent, he's been more than decent. He's been outstanding for Newcastle for 98% of the time. If we're being honest, boys, if we look at just the performances of Livramento, when they've ever gone, fucking hell, Livramento's had a stinker today. Very, very rarely, let's be honest. But my biggest problem with Livramento and the way that modern football is right now, a fullback needs to have some attacking threat. He ain't got anything going forward. And Saturday was barred by the manager putting Livramento on Langer because Langer's got no confidence, doesn't know whether he's coming or going, and Livramento's not great going forward. And it was just that was just a recipe for disaster on that right-hand side, truthfully. I'm a bit like you, Pete. I would be because the difference with Livramento and Gordon is that Livramento's got 2 years left on the contract. Now, you have to sell in the summer. You have to. Because if he ain't signing a new deal, which it's been pretty much said for the last season that he isn't going to sign a new deal, fine, that's absolutely fine. But Newcastle have the upper hand this summer to get a good deal for him because he's still got 2 years left on the contract. I'm telling you now, obviously, there's been speculation about Gordon's price, and I will come up to Gordon in a second about 75 million. If we get 75 million for Livramento, I'll buy a pen and I'll sign that myself to sign that off. That's an incredible bit of business for a fullback that can't attack. There you go. but for a fullback that can't attack, okay, he fell over his own 2 feet when he scored against Wolves a couple of years ago. That's what we've got to remember. So if a team, if a Man City or an Arsenal, whoever wants to put 75 million on the table, I'll sign it myself. Gordon's form in the Champions League against teams that he should be playing well against, let's be honest. Benfica, Karabag, other teams like that. Yeah, exactly. Let's be honest. He should be scoring goals. He should be scoring 4 against Karabag. Let's be really honest. But when clubs see those stats in the Champions League and he's only behind Kane at some point in the Champions League in terms of goals and assists or just goals in general, then fair enough. You probably think he's well above his station. But at this moment in time, who is going to put that money on the table? Will Liverpool put that money on the table to replace him for Salah, even though it's not on the right-hand side? No, probably not. No. Will Arsenal put that amount of money on for him instead of a Martinelli, instead of I'm trying to think who else. Trossard, possibly, because I'd say Trossard's age, and you look at Martinelli, hasn't really done it this season, probably not. They might take a punt on a Gordon, but it's got to be in Newcastle United's favour. Has Anthony Gordon down tools? Yeah, I think he has. I think you can probably tell behind the scenes that something's not quite right. I think that stunned answer for 7 seconds probably summed that up. But I sent you a text on Saturday, Pete, I don't think you remember what I said about the Gordon situation. I actually thought Howe dealt with it well in the sense of not playing him, because I don't think he's injured. I think if you asked him to be on the bench and it was against Karabag in the Champions League second leg, I think he would have been on the bench that day, right? But I said to him it was good management, because if he had played him, right, and he didn't put any effort in, and the fans got on, and the fans just thinking, "What are you doing playing him? If he's not arsed," then that would have been worse for the manager. It was better for let him keep out and play Asula and God forbid Alanga and whoever else, because, like I say, at least they actually would have tried and play on a black and white shirt. But just finally on the chat, because I don't want to take too much time. I know people want to speak as well. But Jacob Murphy for me is Jacob Murphy starting games for Newcastle United in 2026. Being a captain in 2026 is laughable. It is laughable. Got nothing against the guy. I think he's been a great servant for Newcastle for the vast majority of times. But the reason why I mentioned Jacob Murphy as well, in terms of not playing, comes back to Paul Mitchell. Okay? Paul Mitchell said something at the time we went, and I'm telling you now, we all probably went, what is Paul Mitchell on? Saying that our transfer strategy is not fit for purpose. We probably all went, no, we've done well. We've got X, Y, and Z, and this, and this. He was bang on. Looking back, because we didn't sell for the right price for players. Okay, when we got rid of players, we're getting rid on freeze because we're too loyal to them. Okay, and we weren't capitalizing on a brand new financial market in football. And he was absolutely bang on. He probably looked at that somewhere and go, "They spent 55 million on Wissa." Like Sophie B just there, 55 million for Wissa is criminal, absolutely criminal. And Paul Mitchell was absolutely bang on. Now, this summer, we're going to have to replace the players that we pretty much try to bring in, bar a couple, bar maybe Ramsey and Chow, and the rest you just think, we're not going to get anything back. It's going to set us back a long time. This summer is a massive summer for different reasons, because I think there'll be a lot of incomings and outgoings, and whoever takes the job on, manager, sporting director, all the best, because it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, and for fans that think they see us linked to some of these players that are like 60, 70 million, like it ain't happening. We are not going to be signing players for those sorts of fees. Ross Wilson has been, in my opinion, given a task of going to that bracket. Boys, I don't know if you remember in the transfer shows, I mentioned towards the end of the summer that we need to change tact and go for those players below the rung of the players that we were going for in the summer and just getting knocked back left, right, and center. We absolutely have to re-explore that. And arguably, and people might not want to hear it, we probably should have done that from the beginning. You know, spending 60 odd million on Alexander Isak turned out to be great, but actually it was probably that deal and the Anthony Gordon deal that screwed us for PSR. Without those two signings, may we have made the jump? Probably not. But if we'd have gone for someone a little bit cheaper, we may still have been successful, but just on a different trajectory, but would have been able to withstand it and stay within the model. It's almost
to be
like...
fair, Pete,
go on.
To be fair, Pete, they tried with Ekitike, remember? They tried to go low.
Yeah. They did.
Down first time.
They were looking at that, but obviously, you know, when a player like that comes available and he's French and the top French team come in for you, there's nothing you can do about it. And after that point, you're always in a losing battle. Like we went back in for him, I think, in one of the January windows. But if you're Ekitike and you're not playing at PSG and you're looking at Newcastle and you're going, well, I've got to get past Isak to get on the pitch, you're probably not going to sign. And rightly, in his eyes, he went to Frankfurt and then he's gone on to Liverpool off the back of that. So he's made the right decisions for his career. But you're right. And we need to go back and find the next Ekitike before he goes to PSG in the summer. What we need to do, we need to find the next top left winger before they make the step to the next team. We need to find the next midfielder that has got massive potential. For me, a Keith Smith at 50 million is probably out the picture. As good as he is as a young player, he's probably out of our bracket this summer. We're probably going to be needing to be looking at a 25 to 30 million pound midfielder that's got massive potential that can come in and then grow into being that guy. Same with the goalkeeper, same with any fullback that we sign, whether it's left back, right back. I was watching that Matheli from Toulouse playing the other night. He was playing against Lons. Good player, young lad. Really, really impressed me. Really, really good. He's as cheap as what, 12, 15 million, I think they want for him. He could be the stand-in for Hall, and if Hall gets injured, he can come in and grow it and develop. It's that type of player that we're going to need to sign on both sides and in other positions on the team. There are players out there. You've just got to have the right eye for it, and we need to stay away from signing in England. Unless they're free transfers, or they're an up-and-coming, like I'll give you another name, Achimpong, for example, a young defender with massive potential at Chelsea, who they're probably going to sell. Charlie's already talked about it on our channel. He's probably going to sell him because he's not playing football, who can play right back and centre back, that's got the potential, like a Lewis Hall did at Chelsea when we signed him, to really go on and be that next player. That's the kind of signing that I expect Newcastle to sign if we sign in England. However, we need to be looking in Europe. We need to be looking in South America, and we already are. That's where we need to do our deals. I just want to say really one point just on Eddie Howe, because I've not talked about Eddie Howe. Just really quickly. I called at the weekend for the CEO to make a decision. He needed to make a decision one way or another. If this is true and he has decided to keep Eddie Howe, for me, in my opinion, I think he's taking the easy option. I think he's taking the easy option by keeping Eddie Howe at the club. It might turn out to be the right decision in the long run. I'm not so sure. And the reasons I feel that Eddie Howe's time is done is because, and I've said it before on previous shows, I needed to see something different after the international break. I needed to see change in personnel, change in tactics, change in in-game management. I needed to see a team functioning in a different way. We saw absolutely nothing of that. We saw rinse and repeat. Didn't matter who was on the pitch. And that's what worries me, is that we are seeing the same thing from the manager time and time again. It doesn't matter which players are on the pitch. So my worry is that we sign these promising up-and-coming players coming in the summer, but we're going to get the same. And we're not going to get the same. We're not going to get anything different. We're not going to get a reaction. We've got pressure on us next season. We've got pressure on it because one game a week you'd think would take the pressure off. I'm more worried about next season, particularly in my opinion with Eddie Howe in charge, because there is, like Daz said, expectation. I expect us to be getting top five. I expect us to be getting Champions League. But with that pressure, I'm worried that we can't handle it and it drops. I'm worried that because we're expected to get that we don't, because we weren't necessarily expected to get that in the season we get it season.
Yeah.
Frozen?
We lost Pete.
It's a nice picture. It's a nice picture of him frozen. I don't know if you got the same picture.
I would love it. I would love it. Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy to put top 5 on Eddie Howe next season, because I wouldn't put that on the new manager next season, because it's a lot to ask a new manager to finish in the top 5 in his first helm at Newcastle. That will be ridiculous, because we don't know what he's going to be able to spend. We don't know who we're going to be able to sell. So it's going to be difficult to put that on. I'm happy with 7th next season. That's with Eddie Howe or a new manager. Even with new signings, I'll take 7th next season, because I'm tired of jumping the gun, being this Champions League team, and the board can't match it with the depth, and then we suffer the season after that. We played in the Carabao Cup semi-final this season, so we've played a lot of games in big moments where we've not had the squad to match those games. There was one point in this year, I was watching Newcastle so much, I got tired of watching them. I was dreading the next fixture, because it was either Anthony Gordon's going to play at right back until Tielemans out for another 6 weeks, and we're still bound to a thin squad, and we have this big game to play against. I was tired, and I just want the board, if we're going to climb on the pitch, you have to climb off it with the team. Otherwise, we're just going to be going around in circles.
So do we all fancy a win against Arsenal on Saturday then?
I'm so interested. How do you feel about that game? How do you guys feel about it?
Nah, but I'm basing it off what I've seen. To be honest, Fumby Johnny, if we were playing Wolves, I wouldn't fancy it. I just wouldn't. And genuinely, I wouldn't.
Hey, Wolves are a good team, Chris. Come on.
They are. They're not
It's a tough game. It's a tough
I'll take
game
a
these
Burnley
days.
right now. I'll take a Burnley right now.
I'll take Burnley. I'll take
funny
Burnley's
thing is,
goalkeeper.
lads,
I'll take Burnley's goalkeeper right
we
now.
can surprise Arsenal on Saturday. And that's the maddest thing I have. We can actually do something so rude and actually play well and be like, why? By the way, guys, say what you want about Osula, 2-2. So to put that out there.
2-2, yeah. He took his finish well.
Yeah, I'd play Osula on the right on Saturday. I really would, because you've got. I don't know about you, Daz, but I've got no confidence in Along. I've got no confidence in Murphy. And Osula's got nothing to lose. He's fresh. He's fast as anything. He will make mistakes, and he probably will. He won't be. He's not amazing, but for me, he is. That's the beauty of him. He's unpredictable, and I think if you play, let's say you go Barnes. Let's say he goes Barnes, Voltemade, or Osula. Unlikely, but let's say if he does that, right? You would think, you know what, maybe we could do something, but that's our biggest weakness at the minute. Is you just whichever the three you go with, you've got no confidence that you're going to get goals from. But I do think a big positive, and I think it's good timing, is that Bruno's back in the team, because when he came on, that was like that 15-minute spell when he came on against Bournemouth. Yes, he didn't get the assist, but he practically got the assist. Let's be truthful. He did galvanise, and he still brings that little bit of an X factor into this midfield for Newcastle. He does bring something different. He is still probably our best midfielder. But would you go with Sula, Barnes, and Voltemade on Saturday, Daz, or would you go something different?
Yeah, look, we were calling for ages to give Sula a shot on the right, but Fumbi is right that he's done well, as he's got his goals in the last two games. But no, I'd give that a go for sure, because we've all been calling for Nick Voltemade to start up top in the number 9 slot. So yeah, why not? And then the way he cut in, bring it on. That would suit me. It'd be interesting to hear what the other boys think as well. While I have a chance, while I'm speaking, I'm going to drop this in here, and this is going to go down like a lead balloon. But Sandro Tonali forever, and definitely for one more season.
Bombs.
If we need that rebuild that everyone's hoping for, he has to go first. If we're looking for that rebuild, he has to go. He's the most valuable asset we have, and he's already out the door. Like the way he's, I would love to say, yeah, he's already out the door. He's already out.
No, I think we can bring him back in. I know that Jordy Joyner has talked about that as well, but and I always thought that he was never fully out that door. And I think cash out on Anthony Gordon. He's definitely out the door. He's definitely in that bracket of wanting out. And Tino as well, from what we've seen recently, and his injury record, as Pete has highlighted there. So, but I think Tonali. But you know what I do? I bring in another. I don't think he likes playing in the 6. I play himself and Bruno at the top of that midfield, and bring in like a Kamara from Monaco or something like that. Another holding midfielder in there. And I'd even go, or I'd play Miley there maybe. But I'd rather see Miley. I think Miley can do a job in the right back. I liked him in that right back slot.
You know, with when I look at, and sorry for disappearing, I know the whole Wi-Fi in the house just went down, so I don't know what's going on. But with the top players that are there to leave potentially, it has chopped and changed over the course of the last sort of 4-5 months. There was talk that Tonali was destined to go, that he was already out the door. Then it simmered down a little bit, and the talk started to get quiet. Then it was Tino Livramento guaranteed to go, and then that went quiet. Now it's Anthony Gordon. The one thing I'll say is that the noises that you hear loudest towards the end of the season are likely to be the ones that are moving. And you're hearing Gordon, you're hearing Tino, you're hearing a lot less of Sandro Tonali, because all you're hearing now with those links and from those journalists that are likely to know, whether it's national, international, whoever, is that the price is too much. The value that we have on Tonali's head is too high. And if someone's willing to pay stupid money, then we will sell him. That makes me think that he's maybe not one of those priorities that are ready to leave. And it's already been said that if we do sell Anthony Gordon, and buying are stupid enough, or if anyone's watching this, like making the right decision, if you're a Bayern fan, to sign him for 75 million, then there's not too much more selling that we need to do, in my opinion, to make sure that we've got enough money to be able to do what we want to do in the summer, because it's very clear that we have to sell a big star in order to balance the books and in order for us to go and sign the players that we want to do. I'm not convinced you see 3 top players or important players leave the club. I think you see a maximum of 2, and then it's supplemented through your fringe players, through your likes of Pope, or maybe leaving, or your Willock definitely leaving, maybe even an Asula. I think that's where you'd likely to see that move. And so for me, I think there is a chance of Sandro Tonali staying. And if he does stay another year, what's the harm in that? You sell Gordon and you sell Tino this summer, you reinvest in the squad, you keep it solid enough with enough big, important players around you. He gives us another year, and then all of a sudden, you move Tonali on next year. And then you've sold, again, next summer, your other important player, but then you've got less to do. You've still got the money in, but you've got less to do in order to improve the team. And it's about squad planning. Squad planning for me is absolutely key. If we want that rebuild, Johnny, you talked about it. We've got a lot of work to do. Fumby, you talked about it. We've got a lot of work to do. Us 3 boys have said it continuously now for weeks. We've got a lot of work to do. You've got to do it strategically. Selling all of your top players in one summer is not ideal. Doesn't matter whether you need to go or not. It's just not ideal. You want to do it strategically and over a period of time.
But the club aren't going to do that. The club aren't going to do that. Like they're not. They're not. They're not going to sell all star players. And look, if someone came in for 100 million for Gordon, 100 million for Livermore, 100 million for Tonali, stupid money, then they're still not going to sell all 3 of them, because they're not that stupid. They're not naive, because it would make no sense. They need to be still competitive on the pitch. What they do need to do, I'm right, I do agree, they need to be cute. They need to be clever in the transfer market. They need to look at this. They need to look at what they need to do, because if you do, I think Livermore is probably the most likely, because he's only got 2 years left in the contract. Potentially, with Trippier going as well, you may have to bring in at minimum two fullbacks. Now, that's again, how much are you willing to spend on 2 fullbacks this year? That's one of those fullbacks is probably barely going to play, because they're going to probably be an understudy at Lewis Hall. So it's about being cute and clever. I'm sure there's people in that football club that know what they're doing. Like I said, this is a massive window for Ross Wilson, because this is where he's going to get judged. Because the last two guys come in have barely had a transfer window. He's going to get the biggest transfer window to deal with because of the mess of last year. He can't do any worse than what we had to deal with last year. But if they can get it right, that's all we need to do. You look at Villa's the perfect example. Villa, we all thought. I think everyone thought in the summer that Villa didn't really do the best business. They did brilliant business in the end, bar Harvey Elliott. Let's be honest. Yeah. But I don't know. I think I think you were going to try to say something, Fumby. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say the Tonali thing is giving me Isak vibes. Yeah, where we didn't want him to go because we love him, but we can see the writings on the wall. I don't want us hanging around Tonali. If he wants to go, bounce. Get him out in the first week and use that money to build the squad. Because what we did last season was sell our best striker on the last day of the window. That doesn't make any sense to me. I want players that want to play for Newcastle. And right now, from this season, it doesn't look like Tonali wants to play at Newcastle. But like he's stomping ground till he gets a bigger move. That's the attitude I get from him. He hasn't. I hold him higher than I hold Ramsey, than I hold Willock, than I hold any other person in that midfield, because I've seen his ability and I know what he's capable of. And this season, he's left us hanging dry so many times. So if he wants to go, he actually makes more sense than Tino. Because like Johnny just said, we sell Tino, we probably need 2 right backs. So why not keep Tino and his bum ass and bring someone else in just as good as him and see how that wakes him up. See how he feels about seeing his replacement right in front of him. Then see how he gets, because let's be honest, he's not the most attractive player now. He gets injured too much. So if he doesn't get his big move and we bring in a nice, decent right back, he will rethink his priorities. Whereas Tonali, he knows the world is his oyster. And that's why he's been moving like that this season. So I think he's more important to sell.
Do you know, just to counter that, Fumby, because I agree with what you're saying. I totally agree. The thing for me though is, and as Pete mentioned, like I don't think I don't think loads of big players leave. The only reason I think Tonali is probably the most likely to stay is because I think he has a deep desire to go back to Italy. Now, we've discussed this on the channel as well, saying that, you know, him going back to Italy as of now is probably unlikely because Newcastle will at least demand, well, they reckon 100 million, but it's probably 80, 90 million. And nobody in Italy is paying 80 or 90 million. The only way I think Sandro Tonali leaves comfortably is if an Arsenal, a Real Madrid, someone like that just come in and just go, we're having him, and then he goes. The likes of Anthony Gordon, I think there's more like chance of him going. I think the same with Tino Livramento. But what I wanted to ask you boys, and we did briefly touch on this on the last show, and I'm going slightly off on a tangent here, but it actually petrified me when we actually, you know, spoke about it. So if you think about it, we've got 7 to on my head. If I've got one, do tell me. We've got 7 attacking players. So we've got Gordon and Barnes on the left. We've got Alanga and Murphy on the right. And through the middle, we've got Nick Voltemade, we've got Johan Wissa, and we've got Willisula. I mean, you could argue he's on the right, but, you know, there's your 7. Now, the problem with that is we've just mentioned we've just mentioned Anthony Gordon is probably going to be out the door. So that leaves you with just Harvey Barnes. On the right, we've got an issue in that we're probably not going to get rid of Anthony Alanga. Jacob Murphy, you could argue, you know, again, if we're going to be cute, like you mentioned, Johnny, and sell players and get some kind of value for them, Jacob Murphy should be going this summer. You've then got Willisula. One of Nick Voltemade or Johan Wissa will go. I don't believe both will stay. But when you look at that forward line, boys, that is bad, isn't it? That is bad. There's nobody you hang your hat on and go, he's the guy, he's the one. You know, we can, like in the midfield, you could argue we've got Bruno, we've got Tonali if he stays, we've got Louis Miley, we've got Joe Linton, even though he's been linked to moves away. In defence, you're going, okay, Malik Chow, Sven Botman, Lewis Hall, Tino Livramento if he stays. Goalkeeper, slight issue because we haven't even touched on that. That needs a big overhaul as well. But it's that attacking line is a big, big problem. And I just wanted to get your boys' perspectives on that because me, Daz, and Pete have had a conversation over it. But how do you feel about that front three? Like, where's your head at with that front three? Because at the start of the season, I was looking at it, licking my lips, going, Alexander Isak who? Now I'm thinking, fucking hell, we're going to have a big summer, a big, big summer.
Yeah, the first thing is I would never play Osula on the right because he's not a right winger. And he hasn't got the blessing or the feel-free ability to come off the right. He's just not that guy. We're going to need to
do any worse than Alanga, Wimby? Can he do any worse than Alanga?
He can't do any worse than Alanga, but I always say, if I say to you, I'm better than, you know, Alanga, he's like, but you're not telling me much. Do you know what I mean? Like, I understand
that's what he's got against. That's what he's got against him, though, isn't it? Really, for the minute,
right? But what I'm saying is, when he gets to do right wingers, Osula can't cross. He barely sorts his feet out half the time. When he scored that goal against United, he was shocked.
I was shocked.
He didn't think about that. If he thought 2 more seconds, if he thought about it for 2 more seconds, he would have skied it. You see what I'm saying? I love Osula, but he's not a right winger. And I agree with what Chris is saying. That whole, I don't like Nick Voltemade for Newcastle. If he was a pet player, if we had a manager who was more into tactics and, you know, all that one-touch football and stuff like that, he would work for us. But we don't have a manager like that. So if we're going to keep Nick Voltemade, you might as well sack Eddie. Because I just don't think they're the same. I don't think they can work. It doesn't do what we need for our system. And that's okay. And we all have to admit, Bayern were 100% right. We fully overpaid for dude. We fully overpaid. And that's just what it is. But we do need to revisit that whole attack. I want Barnes and Gordon gone. But like you said, we can't sell everybody. So if the only person I'd keep in that attack, oh my God, I wouldn't keep any of them.
Were you going to say Barnes? Because even then you could argue, is this the summer to get rid of Barnes?
Yeah, I don't like
get
Barnes.
Any money.
Hey,
this is the summer to get rid of Barnes.
Yeah.
Don't start. Don't talk
Leicester,
about my boy like that. You know,
Listen, I only like 3 players in the Newcastle squad, and I'll only keep 4. The 3 players I like are Lewis Hall, Bruno, and Joe Linton. And I'll keep Thiago. The rest of the team, I really don't care about their lives anymore. I really don't care.
When did
Sorry,
Newcastle
and Miley as well. The rest of the team, even Botman, because of his injury record, I'm just not in love with him no more. I'm not in love with any of those players no more.
You're causing a problem here. Me and you are gonna have a fight in a second because
bro, I love the team, but they let me down, man. They've let me down. They've moved like punks, man.
They're
all punks, man. They're all in the same.
You turned us into a
keep it
five-a-side team, and Fumby. You turned us into a five-a-side team. That's it. That's all we've got. No, literally, the only thing I would say, I'm a big fan of Barnes. He frustrates me. He does frustrate me, particularly at the start of last season. I'm thinking you can give us so much more, and even parts of this season, I think you can give us so much more. But I think Barnes has got enough to say this year. Actually, I think I've had a pretty good season overall, and I would agree with that. I do think he's had a good season, but I have always been a big fan of Gordon. I don't like his attitude, but I have been a big fan of him. I do think he can. He does scare defenses. He really, really does. If he's just talking about his natural ability, he scares defenses. Have we seen enough of Whistler and Voltemada? Like obviously, when you look at that introduction, that for yourselves, lads, when you look at Voltemada's goal against Everton, you're thinking, "What? Do you know? That wasn't that long ago. No. It wasn't that long ago." And you're thinking, surely, and that was like. It seems like a magical universe that Voltemada was scoring goals up front for Newcastle and taking the Mickey out of Little Arms. Do you know that? It was an unbelievable performance that day. Even I had a good game that day. But if I had a magic wand, I'd be saying thanks very much for your service, but time to go, Jacob Murphy. I'd be saying Anthony Langer, look, it just hasn't worked out. It's just one of those things. Sometimes you get transfers wrong, and it just doesn't suit Newcastle United in terms of how we do things. I'd say thank you very much. Move on. Whistler, I'm not on the bye Whistler bandwagon just yet because you can't score 20 goals in the Premier League in one season and be a bar player overnight. I think Newcastle might have to persist with him next year. They might not. They might just cut the losses, or they might send him on loan, and he might have a good season somewhere else, and Newcastle can make the money back. However, I think there might be still something in Whistler. But the question's got to be, can you make Whistler and Voltemada work next year? Can another manager make them work and they can play together, or potentially play in different games? That might be a question. Asula, I like his endeavour. I like his work rate. I like his work ethic. I like a lot of things about him. But for me, he's not a Premier League player. If I'm being really honest, I don't think he's a Premier League striker, and I don't think he's a Premier League right winger against anybody over position 12 in the league. And I think that's the big issue.
I'm going to jump in with one question, right? And it's for Fumby. And Fumby, it is one of these questions.
That's a loaded question, isn't
it? It's a loaded question. Fumby, right. Here's a scenario. A Premier League club comes in and offers 80 million for Sanders Tonali. And another Premier League club comes in and offers 30 million for Willock. You can only accept one. What are you accepting?
I'm accepting 5 million for Willock. They can keep the 25 as a blessing and a thank you. I appreciate you even making an offer. For that making an offer, we're going to knock 25 off, and you can take Willock. And by the way, we throw in Murphy as a bonus with that. Because Willock has to go, y'all. He has to go this season. He has to go. He was supposed to go 2 seasons ago with Murphy. And this is part of the problem we've been carrying. I love Willock, but you can see he's just not of the level that we want. Same as Asula. You can just see it. You understand? When Willock comes on, I lose faith in what we're doing. Remember that goal against PSG? Was it PSG? Against Chelsea? Where he broke through one-on-one with the goalkeeper. Do you know why he squared it? Because he didn't believe he could score it.
Yeah.
He squared it. He did it. He looked up. He took his time and said, I'm fucking up this square pass. I'm going to lay it on a plate. So if Gordon messes up, I ain't catching no heat. He has to go now. He's just not there no more.
This is the problem, though. We lack, or we have too many players that lack technical quality. And that's what we lack in this team.
I thought Ramsey brought that beat.
Jacob Ramsey has that. He does have that, and we will see that in time to come when he starts playing a little bit regular. He's got past his injury problems. He's been fit for a long while now, which was a question mark at Villa. He's been fit for a while. He's played minutes as and when here and there. He needs to get up to speed and playing regular football week in, week out. And I think, for me, in my opinion, I think he needs to be pushing Joe Linton for a start next year. He needs to be pushing Joe Linton out. Joe Linton will be 30 next year. He needs to be starting to kind of weed him out of the team and really asking some questions to say, am I knocking on the door here? I need to be starting ahead of him. That's what I want to see from Jacob Murphy next year. But technically, he has it. Joe Willock does not. Jacob Murphy does not. He puts the occasional good ball in, but if you give him 10 crosses, he'll probably put 3 that are good crosses. Not pinpoint, but good crosses in. The rest of them are absolute garbage. And this is part of our problem. Is that, you know, even you go on the other side of the coin. And this is the thing about Harvey Barnes. Like, I can't remember whether it was you, Johnny, or yourself, Bumby, about Harvey Barnes saying, you know, you can see more coming from him. I don't love Harvey Barnes because I can see this amazing all-round player. He's a very limited player, but what he does in that limited ability is very good, and it's what I like to see. He's a killer in front of goal. He can put the ball in the back of the net. If you give that ball to him in the final third, he will make something happen. He will make a shot on goal. He would ask a question. He can, as he's done many times this season, potentially win you a game. He is that. If you're wanting him to go track back, running 30 yards or back and forth, covering 10, 12 kilometers a game, it's never been his game. He wasn't doing that at Leicester, but he was still getting goals and assists on the board at Leicester, doing exactly what he does. For me, I think we can replace Gordon. We won't have the same elements and ability that Gordon has, but I think we can get someone that's more efficient in the final third. I want to see goals in games. I want to see when we're down and struggling and in the trenches, I want to know that my winger can make a difference, do that little bit of quality that can win you a game, and not putting all that pressure on our strikers, which is what we've had to do this season. And ultimately, all of them have failed at times to be able to produce the magic. We need our wingers doing more. Alanga, I would love, I said it to, I think I said it on here, I might have said it on 12th Man. I would love Nuno to keep West Ham in the league and go, you know what? Come play for me. I made you the guy when you were at Forest. You played amazing football under me. Let's recapture that. Take a hit on him and let him go back and play with Nuno. That's my dream scenario. Probably won't happen, but that's what I would want. Otherwise, we've got him next season, whether we like it or not. But Jacob Murphy is absolutely a player that we can move out the club. There are players to be moved on here, and we've said it before. We need to be ruthless. We absolutely need to be ruthless. Johnny, I'm not sure if you need to shoot at this.
Yeah, I'm going to shoot, but all I will say about the Barnes thing, it's not necessarily the defensive element what I want to see more from him. It's more just a tiny bit more creative. I just feel sometimes it's a bit of a one-trick pony up against fullbacks. Just kind of develop your game that way. That's kind of like the only thing I would really add on that. But look, I think regardless, yes, it's a big summer and we can all talk about how big of a summer it is. But I think this is a big question for the ownership. This is a massive, massive test for the ownership. Firstly, on the manager. Secondly, on what their plan of attack is for the summer. And finally, what is the stance on our top players, on our big players, and how do we essentially move the club forward from that? That's going to be a question you'll answer in the 1st of September or the 2nd of September. Look, I think it'll be fascinating. I think obviously when we probably do one of these towards the end of the season in pre-season, we'll go, didn't expect this to happen, but I think it'll be incredibly fascinating. I really, really do. And yeah, hopefully that's end this. I don't think we'll go the rest of the season without winning a game. I think we will win a game somewhere, but we just need something to hold on to. We need something to hold on to in terms of a little bit of positivity. If we can take that into, take that into, like, say, the last game of the season, we have a good result against Fulham. We think, well, actually, maybe we can build on something for next season, just to kind of give you a bit of boost going into the summer and all those weekends without Premier League football. But it's never as bad as what it is, but it's never as good as what it is. So you look at last year, amazing, but it was never too good. Now it's never too bad. We'll be all right. We've seen worse.
If you could have one, if you could pinpoint one game that we're going to win between now and the end of the season, what do you think it'll be? Which game?
Don't say Arsenal.
Do you know what? Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest, by the way. Wouldn't surprise me. If I'm being really, really honest, West Ham's winnable. West Ham is winnable because they're gonna may have to go for it. If Spurs miraculously win a game of football, which seems fascinating, almost impossible the way with some of their fans going on at the minute. West Ham could be a chance, and I think West Ham might be a good game because it'd be good to see give Trippier a good send off for all the work he's done at the club. Been a terrific servant. I just think it might have it might be a nice atmosphere on that Sunday afternoon. Might even be a Monday night. Who knows? But I'm going to say West Ham. I think Forest will be tricky because of the fact that it's at the City ground, and they may have something, and they'll probably look at Newcastle and think that's the game that need 3 points. So that might be tricky. But there's no way we're getting anything again. We're not beating Brighton. Fulham, we've not really done very well at in the past, and I think Arsenal will probably just have a bit too much because they've got to win, and they'll probably would have handpicked playing Newcastle this weekend. But yeah, just need a bit of Fumby positivity. That's all we need. That's all you need in life.
Hey, listen, I think we're going unbeaten from here on, bro.
I thought so.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I thought so.
Arsenal going to play Atletico Madrid on Tuesday, so they're gonna have that one eye on that game, and that's when we're gonna creep in. We do our business at the City ground. I don't care what they're looking for. We are not rubbish. You know what I'm saying? We're just going through a little identity crisis right now. But don't worry. Don't get mad or be surprised when we go unbeaten from Saturday.
Joe Willock 2-1. We've heard here first.
Osila 3-3. Osila Bruno's back. Maybe Jolinton's still suspended, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, not Jolinton, but Tonali and Bruno masterclass. That's the thing. Tonali's missed his babes. Bruno and Tonali had a bromance going. Now Bruno's back. Put some, Anthony Gordon loves a big game. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be typical that he turns up for the Arsenal game?
He wants to play up top. And then we end up trouncing Arsenal, and then everyone's looking at us like, you know the funny thing? The fan base is out of Newcastle are looking at us like, oh, you always give Arsenal a tough time, man. They got trouble. And I'm like, you haven't seen us play in the last 2 weeks, have you? Got to say Newcastle.
It's mad. Oh, God. Right. I suppose we'll leave it there for tonight. We've done a little bit of therapy on all things Newcastle. Anyhow, strikers, who's good, who's not, who will be signed, who will we sell? The life of Newcastle United today.
That is for sure. Right. We'll say goodbye. We'll play out with our captain who's back. And no, it's not Jacob Murphy. See you in the next one. Cheers, boys.
Sooner or later in life, the things you love, you lose. But you've got the love I need to see me through. You got the love. 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 Sometimes I feel like throw my hands up in the air. Ha ha ha.